Influentia, this is a pretty innovative take on trick-taking games. It has a trick-taking element, but then it adds a lot of other stuff, as you will see. It is a game set in a dystopian version of Italy, which is plagued by corruption, by clan politics, and also ravaged by a deadly pandemic. I mean, these sci-fi designers really have some imagination. It's crazy. So there are 4 cities, and you will fight for control and influence of Firenze, Bologna, Milano, and Pisa. Each city has a deck of cards. You shuffle the cards and you flip one face up on top of the deck. That is the next card that can be acquired for that city. On top you have the number of influence points that the card is worth and other symbols that may allow you to acquire different kinds of advantages. Plus we have some special cards such as the Plague Doctor or the Governor. So we're gonna have a deck for Firenze, Bologna, Milano, and Pisa, just like so. We have a scoring board that goes in the middle of the table, but is also used for 2 other things. We place a token here randomly at the beginning of the game. It can be moved by game effects later, that indicates which suit is the trump suit. If it's electricity or medicine or chocolate bars or heads, what? And then also we have a marker here that tells us the priority, or I should say which card wins against which, meaning if the token is here, higher numbers win against lower numbers. 10 is higher than 1. If the token is moved here by game effects, now lower cards win. So 1 would be better than 10 in this other example here. At the bottom of the board, we also place some cards, and more cards will be added by game effects that are quarantined, that is called the quarantine area, and we place rat tokens on top of them. We also have a nice iconic player right there to remind us of what cards do, what game effects do. Now, we have cards that are used for the main trick-taking event. They have the suits indicated by those symbols there, numerical values, and icons that we will see later what they do. In general, generally speaking, the top of the card tells you how to acquire the card or what the card can do. At the bottom gives you a reward, which can be a special effect or victory points for other kinds of cards. So each player will have a hand of cards, and then we start in a fairly trick-taking traditional trick-taking way. Nothing too radical for now. A player will play a card which may or may not be the trump suit, say it's medicine for now, and they play a card. Then everybody, and this becomes the initial suit. Yeah, microchips looking like chocolate bars. A player plays a card and that becomes the trump suit. Then every other player will have to play a card, and they do not have to follow suit. That's unusual, I know. But this player plays this card, and this other player plays this card. Now, if somebody played a card with the trump suit, then the player that played the highest card in the trump suit, or the lowest, depending on that, will win the trick. If no one played a card of the trump suit, then we'll look at the initial suit, and again, the player with the lowest or the highest, depending on the position of that token, will win the trick. That's how we determine who wins the trick. Which means if you play a card that is neither the trump suit or the initial suit, there is no chance for you of winning the trick. Whoever wins the trick may choose one of those 4 cards on those 4 decks and add it to their personal tableau in their personal play area. They don't have to, though. They can also choose, instead of taking one of the cards that were played by one of the people that lost the trick. Suppose I really want this one to activate game effects that I have in mind. Then I take this one, and the player I took it from will then select one of those 4 cards. Basically, at the end of each trick, one player, usually the winner of the trick, will take a city card from there, and everybody else gets their card back. Or somebody else will get this card, and everybody else will get one of these cards. And that's the general idea for now. That's the general idea for now. Why would you take your cards? Your cards, you take them and you put them in your play area, and you organize them. When you have two cards in your play area with the same icons, you must discard them, and you must activate their effect. And here, if you want to pause, the back of the rule book tells you what those effects are. If you pause the video, you can read and get a sense of what they can do. Also, again, there is a reminder here. Generally speaking, say some examples. So when a player accumulates 2 plague symbols, the rat symbols, they take a rat card and they put it on a card controlled by another player, a city card, and it goes in the quarantine. So that's pretty bad. The exterminator, the other way around. You get to collect a card from the quarantine. The tax collector, you win as many victory points as buildings that you own with value of 1. Value 1 is not very good usually, but you can activate the defect and it becomes good. Usually you want high values. Value 3 is good for influence. However, those people also revolt, because when a player accumulates 2 revolt symbols, the rest of the players lose a victory points for each building with value 3 that they possess in their influence area. So that's an interesting balancing mechanism there that makes value 1 a little better and value 3 a little trickier. So, what else? As you collect cards and you form your tableau, you organize them. There's my Bologna pile, then I have my Firenze pile. But as you collect cards, you also collect these symbols here. And when you have enough, you can then use them, not use them really, you don't spend them, but you demonstrate that you can acquire one of these bonus cards. Say if I have 3 city cards with the bullet symbol, then I take this card and it's worth 3 victory points. If later I acquire another one, I have 4 bullets, then I flip it to the other side and it's worth 5 victory points. So those cards again are good for the influence points, as you will see, but they're also good when you combine the symbols to be able to acquire these other things. So player tricks, use game effects to move things around, to change these, to change this, to take cards from other people, put them in the quarantine, take cards from the quarantine, all those cool game effects that you saw. The round is over when there aren't enough cards in the draw deck to replenish people's hands, and at that point you score points. You score for cities. Each city is scored separately. You see how much influence each player has. For example, this player has 4 influence in Firenze. These are the player only 3. Blah, blah, Saturn. So each city scores separately. Each city gives 5 victory points to the player that has the most influence there and 3 victory points to the second player. Then governors, those are some cards that are in there. You can acquire a governor for a city and they break ties. In case there was a tie in influence, the governor or the player who owns the governor wins that. Also, they're worth 2 victory points. Each player has also the points for these cards that they have in their possession. And once the scoring is finished, well, you reset the next round. You play 3 rounds, and at the end of the 3rd round, the player with the highest score wins the game. This is definitely an interesting, innovative take on trick-taking games. It is actually so different. There's so much stuff added around that general concept that the trick-taking element almost fades into the background. I would say that the set collection takes the center stage, that activating game effects and trying to achieve majority, to steal majority from people, to trigger effects that will force them to lose stuff is a lot more important. Also, the fact that the relative value of the cards, so if ones are better than tens or vice versa, changes is a big innovation. So if you like trick-taking games, I don't know if you like this one. If you like set collection games, area majority games, and backstabbing games a little bit, then this game will be for you. Mind you, again, if you like trick-taking games, you may also like this one. My point is that is no assurance. There are certain games that are so similar or so close or true to the general idea that if you like that one, chances are you like this one. I'm just saying that your liking trick-taking games is no predictor of whether or not you will like Influentia. Now, we're still in times of pandemic, although I'm scheduled for my first dose of vaccine tomorrow. So I played this game only with my kids that are now 8 and 10, and they didn't like the game all that much. I liked it, but maybe because, or say mainly thinking about how much more I'm gonna like it when I play with my adult friends at the end of the pandemic. So this is a game that, although it says 10 and up, and it works that way, meaning a 10-year-old can play it, an 8-year-old can play it in terms of the complexity of the rules. It has turned out to be just a little too laborious for my daughters to be able, again, not to understand and implement the rules, but to understand and implement strategies. It's easy for them to play. It's a lot harder for them to play it well, to get where they want to go, to be able to pull off those combos and to be able to acquire those majorities and score well, etc., etc., etc. And again, there is a pretty strong confrontational elements that you don't have in other, say, trick-taking games, although you're winning a trick, but it's very abstract. I score a point now, I collect some cards now, as opposed to I take away from you that valuable cards that you worked so hard to collect, and I'm gonna put in the quarantine so I can steal it later, but then a third player comes in and steals it for the quarantine. So now you hate me because I stole your cards, I hate that person because they stole the card that I stole from you and I was planning to collect. Hating are strong words, but you know that in games that are about directly eliminating, directly stealing stuff from other people, emotions sometimes can run pretty strong, and that happens when you play with adults, and that happens even more so when you play with young players. So there is that confrontational elements that may just not be everybody's cup of tea. Other than that, the game I think is, again, really fun with people that can take that. It's really fun, and it's so different because you do have different paths to victory. You have different ways in which you can try to use the cards. I like that. I like the fact that winning the trick is not always the best thing, although it mostly is. I think the back of the box makes the case that there's so much variety that it almost doesn't matter winning the trick. It still matters in most cases. It's still better to win than not to win, and maybe you're using a game effect to change which cards win so you can win more tricks later, but winning is still preferable. On the other hand, it is nice that the consolation prize that you get by getting cards that you can then combine to trigger effects is not inconsequential. It's a consolation prize that can pay off. But again, it's a game in which winning the tricks is still better, but not winning the trick is not always better than winning it, but can be pretty good. But again, once you get past the fact that there really is a lot going on, a lot of different things in which you can score, and therefore you're trying to figure them all out, and so it can feel a bit disorienting at the beginning. The game, in essence, again, you almost tend to forget, wait a second, is this really a game where you just play a card and then we see who has the highest card in a certain suit? Yes. Or the lowest card in a certain suit? Yeah, it's that. But through that, there are so many ways in which you can create sets, which really is to me the heart of the game, that it can feel a bit disorienting at the beginning. But in general, it is an innovative design that has a lot of merit, and definitely I find it enjoyable. I enjoyed it well enough when I played it with my kids, although again it meant enjoying it with people that weren't enjoying as much as I was, and I think it's gonna be pretty fun when I can add it to my game night, when I will have one, which I hope is gonna be soon. Influentia, new, bit confrontational, but fun and entertaining game.